You wake up knowing what you need to do, but your body doesn't move. Not because you don't care, not because you're distracted. It's more like your system is heavy, like every small task weighs more than it should. And you quietly wonder, why can't I just do things like other people? Hold that question, because the answer isn't what you've been told. Problem deep dive. From the outside, it looks like procrastination, unfinished tasks, delayed replies, plans that stay in your head. But from the inside, it feels different. You sit down to work, and your mind suddenly fills with static. Not thoughts exactly, more like emotional noise, old conversations, unresolved decisions, things you've been avoiding feeling. So you scroll, or clean something unnecessarily, or do nothing at all. Later, the self-talk starts. Why am I like this? I used to be more disciplined. Other people manage fine. And slowly, an identity forms. You begin to see yourself as lazy, unreliable, behind. This doesn't just affect productivity, it changes how you make decisions. You choose smaller goals. You hesitate to commit. You avoid situations that demand energy. Even relationships feel heavier because showing up requires emotional bandwidth you don't have. What you're experiencing isn't a lack of motivation, it's something much quieter and much more common. Here's the reframe most people never hear. Your nervous system is not failing you, it's protecting you. What looks like laziness is often an adaptation to emotional overload. At some point, your system learned that doing more led to feeling worse, so it applied the brakes. Not consciously, automatically. This pattern doesn't mean you're weak, it means you stayed functional during emotional pressure, and now your body hasn't caught up to the fact that the pressure never stopped. But to understand how to change it, you need to understand how it works. Let's talk about what's actually happening in the brain. Your brain has a limited processing budget. Think of it like a small operating system. Cognitive tasks, emotional regulation, decision-making, they all draw from the same pool. When emotional load is low, there's energy left for action. But when emotional load is high, the brain reallocates resources. This happens largely outside awareness. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning and initiating action, gets less fuel. Meanwhile, the limbic system, the emotional center, stays active. The result? You want to act, but you can't initiate. It's like pressing the gas while the parking brake is still on. Another way to picture it, imagine carrying a backpack you never take off. Every unresolved emotion adds weight. You don't notice it at first, but eventually even walking feels exhausting. Your brain responds by conserving energy, not because it's broken, but because it's overloaded. The question becomes, how do you unload emotional weight without forcing productivity? That's where things shift. This isn't about pushing harder, it's about working with your brain. Here's a framework grounded in psychology, not motivation, regulation. Step 1. Externalize the emotional load. What to do? Once a day, write down everything that feels unfinished. Not tasks, emotions, unsent messages, unmade decisions, lingering guilt. No fixing, just listing. Why it works? The brain treats unresolved emotions as active threats. Writing them down offloads them from working memory. This reduces limbic activation and frees cognitive resources. Real-life example? You stop replaying a conversation because your brain knows it's stored, not forgotten, and that creates space. But space alone isn't enough. Step 2. Shrink initiation, not ambition. What to do? Define actions so small they feel almost pointless. Not work for an hour, but open the document. Why it works? Initiation resistance isn't about effort, it's about prediction. Your brain predicts emotional cost. Smaller actions lower perceived threat. This bypasses avoidance circuits in the basal ganglia. Real-life example? Once the document is open, your system often continues naturally. But the key wasn't discipline, it was reducing emotional forecast. Step 3. Separate energy from worth. What to do? Name low-energy days explicitly. Say, today is a low-capacity day, not I'm failing. Why it works? Shame increases emotional load, which reduces capacity further. This creates a feedback loop. By reframing capacity as a state, not an identity, you interrupt that loop. Real-life example? You rest without spiraling, which actually restores energy faster. But there's one deeper layer. Action before feeling. What to do? Choose one small emotional loop to close. Send the message, make the decision, say no, even imperfectly. Why it works? The brain craves resolution. Completion releases dopamine and reduces background stress. Unfinished emotional business keeps the nervous system activated. Real-life example? One honest boundary suddenly makes everything else feel lighter. Not because life changed, but because load decreased. Here's the model to remember. Think of your energy like bandwidth. Laziness isn't low motivation, it's low available bandwidth. Emotional overload consumes signal before action can happen. So productivity isn't about force, it's about clearance. Clear the background noise, and movement returns naturally. Not fast, but steady and real. You were never broken, you were just carrying too much without a place to set it down. As you unload, slowly, intentionally, your system remembers how to move, not because you pushed it, but because it finally felt safe enough to try. And maybe the most important shift is this. You don't need more discipline, you need less weight. Let that be the thought you carry forward.